2-4, we are looking, our goal is to understand and be able to solve problems with rates, ratios, and proportions. And we start out with a few definitions. The first definition is a ratio. A ratio compares two numbers. You can write it as a fraction, like 1/2. You can write it using the word 2, 1 to 2. Or you can write it with that colon, 1:2. So ratios just compare two numbers. A proportion is two equal fractions. The first one I wrote up there is 1/2 equals 3/6. You can also use variables. A over B equals C over D. And the ones we're going to look at are going to have some variables in there. And the third definition is the cross products property, or means extremes. The product of the means equals the product of the extremes. If you have a proportion, like A over B equals C over D, if you multiply these two, it equals what you get if you multiply these two. And we're going to use that cross product property to solve these next proportions. Example 1, we're going to cross multiply, and you will have 2y. 8 times -5 is -40. And from there you can divide both sides by 2, and your final answer then is y equals -20. Number 2, if we cross multiply, 9 times 3 is 27. 5 times w is 5w. From there we divide both sides by 5. I don't care if you want to leave it as 27 over 5. As a decimal it would be 5.4. As a mixed number it would be 5 2/5. Either of those, any of those three is fine. Number 3, when we cross multiply, 8 times 12 is 96. 1 times x plus 10 equals x plus 10. When we solve that, we need to subtract 10 from both sides, and you are left with 86 equals x. Number 4, when we cross multiply, 7 times 5 is 35. You need to multiply this 4 by that entire thing. So we need parentheses around the g plus 3. And then we need to distribute. So that becomes 35 equals 4g. 4 times 3 is 12. From there you subtract 12 from both sides, and you have 23 equals 4g. Dividing both sides by 4, you can leave your answer like that. 23 over 4. You can change it to a fraction, which would be 5 3/4, or you can change it to a decimal, which would be 5.75. The next two questions are story problems, and we're going to have to set up our own proportions. A ratio of faculty members to students at a college is 1 to 15. So for every 1 faculty member, there are 15 students. And sometimes I like to write like F and S. F stands for faculty, S stands for students. And I just do that to remind myself which number stands for which item. There are 675 students, and the question is how many faculty members are there? And this little S here on the bottom reminds me that's students. So that 675 has to go on the bottom of our fraction. And then we cross multiply. 15x equals 675. And if you divide both sides by 15, get out your calculators.
45.
Is it 45? And there would be 45 faculty members. Number 6, the ratio of games won to games lost for a baseball team is 3-2. And I'm going to put a little W over here to the left for wins and an L on the bottom for losses. And that just kind of reminds me which number stands for which item. If the team won 18 games, how many games did they lose? The little W on the top stands for wins. So the 18 goes up here. And we're trying to figure out how many they lost. 2 times 18 is 36. 3 times x is 3x. We divide both sides by 3. And we end up with 12. So that team had 12 losses. Two more definitions at the bottom of the page. A rate is a ratio that compares two quantities with different units. And the rates that you guys are probably most familiar with, first one would be a pay rate. If you have any kind of a job, you probably get a certain amount of dollars per hour. And the second rate that you guys probably see a lot, or will as you take driver's training, is miles per hour. And a unit rate always has a second number of 1. If any of your parents are big bargain shoppers, they might actually calculate like the cost per ounce or cost per gallon to see whether the bigger item or the smaller item is the better deal. I know I usually look at the cost of gasoline in dollars per gallon and go to the gas station that has the cheapest one. So a rate just compares two things with different units, and a unit rate, your bottom number is always 1.